Hey Ken, how you doing? All right, this is going to be my brief video, 10-15 minutes. I'll try to keep it to that, related to the JFK assassination. And again, I want to be clear, what I'm trying to accomplish here is just establish the fact, I believe it is a fact, that it was the third shot that Lee Harvey Oswald took that day, not the first shot and not the second shot. It was the third shot that actually missed. Again, the Warren Commission, when they initially looked at this, they couldn't determine which of the three shots that Lee Harvey Oswald took that day missed. In 1979, the House Select Committee on Assassinations issued a report, and one of the things that they determined was that it was the first shot that missed. And I believe that that is wrong, and I believe that I can effectively prove it. So let's start out by doing a couple of things here. I'm going to throw up some images to walk through real quick. Okay, so the first image here relates to Dealey Plaza. The street on the far right-hand side of the image is Houston Street. That's the street that the limousine was driving north on before it made a left-hand turn, a sharp left-hand turn onto Elm Street. Elm Street is the street that's kind of near the top of the image, and then it kind of goes back down and to the left there. Now there are several dots that I also have pointed out on this picture here. The first one is a yellow dot that has the number 1 by it. That denotes the location of the limousine when Kennedy was shot the first time. And this is the magic bullet shot. This is the one that hit Kennedy kind of in the back, came out his neck, went into Governor Connally and did the damage to Governor Connally. So that is where the limousine was situated when that first shot took place that hit Kennedy. There's also another yellow dot a little bit further down with the number 2 next to it. That's where the second shot that hit Kennedy occurred, and that was the fatal headshot that's in the very famous Zapruder frame 313. Now, importantly, what I want to point out here are the witnesses, some of the first-hand witnesses. Now, these are people that actually not only heard the assassination, but saw the assassination. Now, right off the bat, I should say that there are really 2 classes of witnesses in Dealey Plaza that day. There are those that actually heard the assassination but didn't see it, and then there are those that actually heard it and saw it. And one thing I did is I paid a lot of attention to the witness testimony of the witnesses that are in that subset, that second group of witnesses that not only heard the assassination but saw it. And needless to say, those are the witnesses that would have been right around the limousine at the time this whole thing occurred. Now, very importantly, I want to say that the overwhelming majority, something around 80% of people in Dealey Plaza that heard the shots that day said that there were 3 shots. So I think it's pretty clear that there were only 3 shots taken that day at the president. And importantly, the overwhelming majority of those people said that the sequence of the shots was one whereby the first shot occurred, then there was somewhat of a delay, then there was the second shot, and then shortly thereafter, the third shot. So the second and third shot were bunched closer together than the first and the second shot. And I think that that's critically important as well. So let me point out some of the names and white dots on this picture here. The first one, there's a white dot with the name Westbrook next to it. That denotes the location of a woman named Karen Westbrook. Karen Westbrook said that she was watching the president, obviously, and just as the president was right in front of her, she heard a shot, she heard the first shot, and that the president kind of grabbed for his throat or, appeared to grab for his throat or what have you. Then she continued to follow the limousine, and she heard a second shot, and the second shot was the one that hit President Kennedy in the head, and she saw the bullet hit the president in the head, and his head explode and everything else. And she said that she heard a total of 3 shots. So clearly she's suggesting that the third shot came after the first 2 shots. Now, down to the left on this image, there's another white dot with the name Newman next to it. That denotes the location of Bill and Gail Newman, a couple that were there with their 2 young kids. Now, Bill Newman specifically mentioned that he saw the limousine coming toward him. He heard the first shot, and he said when he heard the first shot, and this is as he's staring at the president, he said that the president stood up, kind of literally stood up in the car, and then he said he continued to follow the president, and he saw the second shot. He heard the second shot, and that was when the president got hit in the head. Bill Newman says he only heard 2 shots. So after seeing the president's head get blown off, he and his wife kind of, scrambled to the ground with their 2 young children, and there's some famous pictures of them laying on the ground with their young children. So that's what they indicated that they saw. In the case of Bill specifically, he heard only 2 shots. Shot number 1 hits the president, and the president stands up. Shot number 2 hits him in the head. A little bit further down, still you'll see a white dot with the name Hudson next to it. This is a witness named Emmett Hudson. He was on some stairs that were kind of went from the back parking lot behind the grassy knoll. The stairs kind of walked down to Elm Street, and he was about halfway down, situated on some stairs there with a couple of other witnesses. Now, Emmett Hudson says as well, he had a great view of this whole thing. He said he was watching the limousine, and he says that he hears the first shot, and then he hears and sees the second shot where the president gets hit in the head. So he says, again, the second shot is the one that hit the president in the head. And he said at that point, the guys around him said, hit the deck, there's somebody shooting or whatever. So he said, just as he started to kind of like dive down toward the ground as he was getting lower, he says he heard the 3rd shot. So again, Hudson is also saying that he heard the 3rd shot take place after the kill shot, and that it was as he was going down toward the ground. Now, very importantly here, there's another film here called the Nix film, which was actually shot from the other side of the street relative to the Zapruder film. And in that Nix film, you can actually see Hudson sitting on the stairs, and you can see the president get shot. You can see his head get hit. And immediately thereafter, you can see the people on the stairs, Hudson and the 2 other guys, start to scramble and kind of duck. So we actually have photographic evidence of Hudson reacting and all those guys reacting after the headshot. So again, if Hudson's to believe that he was kind of making his way down to the ground when he heard that 3rd shot, that pretty clearly indicates that it was the 3rd shot that missed. Now, to the far left, there's a dot with the name Skelton next to it. That's a guy named Royce Skelton. He was actually on the triple overpass. He was actually above Elm Street on the overpass, railroad overpass there. Got a great view of the assassination as well. He heard and saw the shots. Very importantly, he said that he saw the president get hit in the head, and he said there was another shot that happened after the headshot. And not only did he hear it, but he actually saw it. He said that in front of the limousine and to the left, when he heard the shot that took place after the kill shot, that there was actually like a little skiff of dirt or something that bounced off of the road or what have you. So he said he could actually see a little puff of gravel or something get dislodged on the street. So again, he actually is attesting to the fact that the 3rd shot, there was a 3rd shot after the kill shot. Then if we go back to the right again, we see a white dot with the name Brem next to it. That's the location of Charles Brem. Charles Brem, I think, is an absolutely critical witness. He was there with his young son, and he said he was looking at the president straight in the face when the 1st shot hit. And he said that the president immediately stiffened up. This is his words, stiffened up and kind of, was doing the grabbing for his neck type of thing. And this is right in front of him. He said the president was literally like 15 feet in front of him when this happened. He said he continued to watch the limousine go by, and he was watching the president, and he said he heard the 2nd shot and saw the president get shot in the head. He knew what had happened. He immediately knew what had happened. The president had been shot in the head because he said his hair kind of literally bounced up. He said shortly after that, he heard a 3rd shot, and it's upon hearing the 3rd shot that he thought, what the hell's going on? This person, whoever's shooting, apparently maybe trying to shoot other people there in Dealey Plaza. So he said it was at that point, upon hearing the 3rd shot, that he actually threw his young son down and dove on the ground as well to ensure that his son didn't get hit. That was his main concern as far as that goes. So let me throw up another couple images here. The first thing I want to show is the setup of the limousine there. There's JFK obviously sitting there Directly in front of him is Governor John Connally. To Connally's left is his wife, Nellie, who is kind of, you can't see her very well with that roll bar there. And then obviously behind Nellie and to the left of the president is where Jackie is sitting. Now here's an image that shows the relationship of the president to Governor Connally. And this is really important here. Now you see that from this image here that it's close quarters, and they're very tightly packed in there. And the reason why is because Jackie and the president were sitting on kind of the bench seat in back, and there were a couple of fold-up chairs that the governor was sitting on, plus his wife was sitting on. And you can see that the governor sitting in the fold-up chair is directly in front of the president, closely in front of the president, but about 6 inches to the left. So he's not directly in line, he's just slightly to the left. Now here's another picture from the side that shows that the governor is not only slightly to the left, but he's actually a little lower than the president. So he's sitting a little bit lower than the president there. So that's the setup there. That's what's going on as far as the setup of Dealey Plaza and the witnesses and everything. And you can hear just from the witness testimony that the people that actually saw and heard the president, it's almost universal that they're basically saying there was a shot after that kill shot, which is pretty critically important. No one, absolutely nobody talks about hearing a shot first and then hearing a second shot and the president grabbing for his neck or anything else as far as that goes. So what I want to do now is I want to show you the Zapruder film here at full speed, and I'm not going to say anything here. I'll just show you the Zapruder film at full speed one time, and then I'll follow it up with another shot of another running of the same Zapruder film, but this will be at a much slower speed. It's about 1/3 of the speed is the full speed. And then once you've had a chance to look at that, I'll pick this back up and kind of walk you through some of these things. Okay, so basically what we have here as far as the Zapruder film is concerned is we've got, the car coming down Elm Street. It goes behind a metal sign briefly, comes out from the metal sign, and as it comes out, you can see the president's arm starting to lift up. So at that point, the president has been shot, and at that point, the governor has also been shot. However, the governor doesn't realize that he's been shot. Obviously, the limousine continues down for a little bit. President gets shot in the head. Jackie jumps on the trunk, and all chaos happens there. So very importantly, that first shot that hits the president in the back, kind of comes out his neck, causes him to do that, and the very same shot that goes into Connally, that happened about frame 215, which would have been when the car was actually behind the metal sign. So the president is not shot. That first shot, the shot that hit Kennedy, has not occurred until it's actually behind the metal sign. So it happens at that point, and then as the limousine emerges from behind the metal sign, that's when you can see the president starting to react and reacting and everything else with respect to that. Then about 5.35 seconds later on Zapruder frame 313, that's when the headshot occurs, and that's when the president is killed and everything else. Now, to be clear, what the assassinations, the House Select Committee on Assassinations said was they said that there was the first shot that occurred that just totally missed and the bullet was never retrieved or recovered or anything else. And they're saying there was a second shot that was taken, and the second shot hit the president, hit Connally, and then the third shot was the kill shot. That's what they're saying. And again, I'm saying that's completely wrong. I completely dispute that. Again, if based upon what the witnesses said, there's nothing to support that, but there's also some other pretty compelling evidence to back this up. one of which is the testimony from not only the Secret Service and Jackie Kennedy, but also John Connally, the governor, as well. Now, as far as the Secret Service agent is concerned, Clint Hill is the guy who was in the car directly behind the president's car, standing on the running board, the side running board. And what Clint Hill said is that he hears the first shot. So he hears the first shot and he immediately scans around and he sees the president and he notices that there's some commotion, something going on at that point. And at that point, he jumps off of the running board and starts running toward the limousine. And just as he's approaching the limousine, Clint Hill says he hears the second shot and he sees the president's head get blown off. Clint Hill said he only heard 2 shots. Why did he not hear a third shot, especially if one came after the kill shot? I think that's obvious. There's a lot of commotion going on. He's got to be in shock seeing the president's head get blown up. And, there's screaming and he's trying to get on the car and Jackie Kennedy's climbing out and everything else. So I think there was just everything going on. It just didn't register in his mind, the third shot. Very importantly, Jackie Kennedy as well says that she heard the first shot. When she heard the first shot, she turns around and sees the president and realized that something was going on there. And she was actually trying to push his arm down because his arm was up like that. And she's literally staring at the president right in the face when she hears a second shot and his head blows up. Jackie Kennedy also said she only heard 2 shots. Again, why did she not hear a third shot? I think it's honestly just shock, not too unlike Clint Hill. In fact, Jackie Kennedy, as we can see from the Zapruder film, actually climbs up onto the trunk of the car. Jackie said she did not even remember doing that. So if Jackie can't remember literally physically climbing on the trunk of the car, then it stands to reason, or it's very understandable that she wouldn't hear that third shot, or at least it just wouldn't register in her mind. So again, it seems to pretty clearly indicate that first shot hit the president here, second shot was the kill shot, and that there was a third shot after that, or there was something that took place after that. Now let's talk about Governor Connally. Governor Connally, very importantly, for years insisted that he was shot after the president was shot the first time. So what Governor Connally was saying is, he hears the first shot, the president gets shot in the back, and then Connally says, then all of a sudden, shortly thereafter, he gets shot, and Governor Connally says that he didn't hear himself getting shot, but he felt it. He said it was like somebody punching him in the back, and he said the force was such that it punched him in the back and actually kind of lunged him forward. And then he said at that point his wife pulls him down, and then he hears the third shot. In his mind, it's the second shot, but he hears another shot, and and he equates that to the president getting hit in the head and everything else. So that's what he believes. Now, he didn't actually see the president getting hit in the head. He just hears the bullet, and he just equates it to that. So he, again, for years believed that he was hit by a separate bullet, that he was not part of some magic bullet thing. However, it was proven that indeed he was hit with the same first shot that hit Kennedy in the back. Even though Connally doesn't know that or realize it at the time, it was proven that that's what happened, and that Connally's sort of recollection of events was not exactly accurate. But I want to throw up here a quick clip of Connally basically telling the story, as I just told you, of what he remembers on that day related to the assassination. Then I'm going to walk you through the critical piece of this that I think effectively proves that it was the third shot that missed. So here we go.
We turned on Elm Street to go under the overpass, and I heard this sound that I thought was a rifle shot. I turned to look over my right shoulder, because that's where the sound came from, to see if I could see anything. I didn't. And I was in the process of turning to look over my left shoulder when I felt an impact, as if someone hit me with a closed fist right in the middle of my back. The force was strong enough where it knocked me over. and I saw that I was covered with blood. So, frankly, I thought I had been fatally hit. My wife pulled me down in her lap. She was seated in the jump seat on my left, and I was seated on the jump seat directly in front of the president. She pulled me down into her lap, and about that time, I heard another shot, about that loud, a smack. And my eyes were open. I was conscious, and I saw the blue velour interior of this presidential limousine covered with blood and brain tissue. And I knew that the president had been fatally hit.
Okay, so to reiterate here, what the governor is saying is he's saying that he hears the first shot, he immediately recognizes it as a rifle shot. And the governor very importantly says at that point, he turns around to look at the president. He says he doesn't quite get far enough around to actually see the president, but he says he looks back, and then as he's turning around, in other reports, he says he's turning around, and as he's almost facing forward, he says that's when he gets shot. He says that all of a sudden he gets punched in the back with the bullet. He's kind of lunged forward, and he sees blood all over his shirt and everything. And at that point, his wife pulls him down to the side, and as he's on the side, still conscious, he hears another shot. And he equates that final shot to the president being hit in the head. The thing is that the governor's recollection of events and things, his perception is incorrect. Now, the truth of the matter is that the governor, when the limousine pulls from behind that metal sign and Kennedy's reaching up, at that point, the governor has actually already been shot. He's already been shot. He just doesn't realize it. But what's very important here, the governor talks about when he gets hit, when he gets shot, he gets punched in the back and lunging forward, seeing blood, and then getting pulled to the side. And then as he's laying down, he hears that final shot. So I want to play in slow motion one more time, kind of the sequence of events, and watch for the limousine to pull out from behind the metal sign, the president to be lifting up or whatever, and look for the governor to turn around and look at the president. You'll see that he actually does turn almost all the way around to look at the president, and he'll start moving back around at this point. And remember, according to the governor's testimony, it's at that point that he says he gets shot because he gets kind of punched in the back. Well, I want you to pay attention to what happens at that moment when he's turning around, just as he's front forward, what actually is happening there at that moment, and what happens immediately thereafter. And we'll pick it up again after this Zapruder film plays again one more time real slow. Okay, so you see what's happening here. For the keen-eyed person, if you're looking very carefully, you see that what happens is as the car is emerging from behind the metal sign, Kennedy has clearly been shot because he's responding to it. The governor has also been shot. He just doesn't realize he's been shot. Nonetheless, he does hear what he recognizes as a rifle, and you can clearly see a couple of seconds later, he turns around and looks at the president just as he said he did. And then he says, as he's turning around and he's almost facing forward, he's saying that's when he gets shot. He says he doesn't hear the shot, but he says that's when he gets shot. Well, if you noticed, what actually happens there is that is the moment the president gets shot in the head. So the kill shot is actually hitting the president in the head just as Connally is just about facing forward again. And if you pay close attention to it, what happens is the president ends up flailing back and Connally suddenly lurches forward, just as the governor said. So it appears what happened is that as the president gets shot in the head and then kind of flails back, it appears that the president, who was right behind Connally, kicks Connally's chair right in the center, right in the back. You can literally see this on the tape where all of a sudden the governor is kicked forward. He's lunged forward, just as he said he recalls. The problem is the governor associates that punch in the back, that kick in the back, as him getting shot. But that's not what happened. Indeed, he had actually been shot 5.35 seconds earlier when Kennedy got shot the first time. So the governor's recollection of being kicked forward and leaning forward is absolutely correct. And you can literally see this on the Zapruder film. And then he looks down and sees blood all over his person, on his chest, which makes sense because at this point, he's been shot for 5.5 seconds. And at that point, his wife pulls him over to the side. And very importantly, when he's on the side, he hears the final shot. Now, Connally thinks that when he hears that final shot, that the president's getting struck in the head. But we know that's not true because the president has already been shot in the head. He had already been shot in the head at frame 313. And at that point was laying dead on his side there. So if what Connally is saying is accurate in terms of hearing a final shot, what he's actually hearing is a third shot that missed. In his mind, he's equating that final shot as he's laying down with the president getting shot in the head, but that's incorrect. What he's actually hearing is the third shot that missed. Now, importantly, if you look at what's going on at that time, that third shot takes place, which would have been about 2.5 seconds after the kill shot, approximately Zapruder frame 359. At that point, if you look what the limousine looks like, you've got the president leaned down, he's dead. You've got Governor Connally shot leaning down and his wife leaning over him, obviously alive, but there's nobody in the line of sight anymore for Lee Harvey Oswald except one person, and that's Jackie Kennedy, who at that exact moment happens to be freaking out and climbing up on the trunk of the car and is obviously in a very high profile position. That's the position she was in, and that's at the moment that third shot took place, which obviously missed everything, the motorcade and everything. Importantly, what appears to have happened is it appears to have hit near a manhole cover on the left side of the street, and there's some Warren Commission testimony related to this, that it hit that and then ricocheted slightly over about 30 or 40, 50 feet further and hit a curb on the other street, and it chipped off a small bit of curb concrete, and that small bit of concrete actually nicked a witness named James Tegg in the cheek. And if you look at the trajectory of where Oswald is situated, where the manhole was situated, and where the chipped curb was in relation to the guy named James Tegg, it's all essentially in a straight line. It's the third shot that missed, and it's the third shot that ricocheted near the manhole cover and nicked the curb that's dislodged a piece of cement that hit that James Tegg guy witness in the cheek. And this is all documented. So again, why this is important is because it seems to indicate, I think it pretty clearly indicates, that it was the third shot that missed, not the first shot, not the phantom first shot that no one heard. It wasn't the second shot, but it was the third shot. And again, the only possible person that he could have been shooting at that point was Jackie Kennedy. And importantly, if you look at where Jackie Kennedy was situated at that point, approximately Zapruder frame 359 and where the car was filmed, and you look at the trajectory of the bullet having hit near the manhole cover and then nick a curb a little bit further down, it's slightly to the left. So it does appear that Oswald tried to shoot Jackie but missed slightly to the left. That was the third and final shot, and they left. Now here's what's also very important. I know this thing's getting long. My sequence of events has the first shot taking place with Kennedy getting hit, frame 2:15. Then 5.35 seconds later, it's Zapruder frame 3:13, Kennedy gets hit in the head. There seems to be little dispute that there's basically 5.35 seconds in between the first shot and the head shot. Then about 2.5 seconds later, that's when the third and final shot takes place and it's missed. And again, we can look at where Connolly's positioning and everything to help ascertain that time. So with that sequence of events, what you have is you have the first shot, a little bit of a delay, second shot, and then quickly thereafter, a third shot. That is completely consistent with what witnesses said that they heard. The first two shots being a little further apart and the third shot being closer together. If one is to believe the House Assassination Select Committee, House Select Committee on Assassinations saying that there was the first shot that missed, the timing doesn't work. The timing doesn't work. That means the car would have had to have rounded on the Elm Street and the first shot would have had to have been taken place. And then within a matter of a few seconds, a second shot would have had to have occurred, being the shot that hits Kennedy and goes into Connolly. And then a delay of 5.35 seconds later and Kennedy hits in the head. So what would have had to have happened, you would have had to have the first shot, then a relatively small period of a small break, then a second shot, then a longer break, and then finally the kill shot. That is exactly the opposite of what the witnesses said. So I think if the witnesses who heard it and the witnesses who saw it are to be believed, there's absolutely no doubt about which shot that missed, and it actually makes perfectly good sense, especially when you consider the testimony of John Connolly, who remembered quite well precisely what he heard, what he saw, getting punched in the back, laying on the side, hearing the final shot and everything else. What he's thinking is going on is a little bit off, as I've just described there, but it actually makes perfect sense and speaks precisely to what happened on that day. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to run back to back to back that very small segment, kind of a slow motion. Kennedy getting shot, kind of lurching back, kicking Governor Connolly forward, and then he gets pulled to the side. So that's what happened. It's clearly visible on the tape. So you'll see President gets shot in the head, lurches back, John Lee's kicked forward, pulled to the side. Watch this sequence. I'm going to run about 5 times back to back to back, very slowly here, just that one sequence there, and you'll see precisely what I'm talking about. Okay, so I think you can see what I'm pointing out there, that's exactly what happened. That the governor's recollection of events, hearing the shot, looking around, seeing the president, turning back around, then all of a sudden Connolly getting shot, you can see that actually is not Connolly getting shot, that rather that's the president getting shot in the back of the head and at the same time kicking Connolly's chair forward, which again, Connolly relates to getting shot himself, getting pushed forward, seeing blood on his chest, and then getting pulled to the side, and then importantly, hearing a final shot. That final shot had to have taken place after the president was already dead and everybody is laying down and Jackie Kennedy is on the trunk of the car. That's my case. What do you think?